How's it going, everyone? Today we have with us Daniel Lopez from Verdugo Hills High School. For 7 years, his musical abilities range from piano all the way to trumpet, and has been a musician for 20 plus years. He's produced 5 albums with his band Fuente Praise and has traveled to various churches such as Elim, all the way in Guatemala, and has done events of 20,000 people or more to perform. So welcome.
Well, thank you very much, guys. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. It's it's going to be an awesome interview, and I just hope that I'm able to give you guys something.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on 100 and plus degree weather.
I know, man. It's pretty hot today.
Oh yeah, it's really hot. But hey, it's like, I don't know if you guys went to Puerto Vallarta.
I haven't.
I have.
Oh, it feels like it.
Oh man.
I just thought of Palm Springs.
That's exactly
true.
what it is. It's Palm
insane.
Springs weather, man. It's nasty.
Yeah,
I don't like it, but
yeah, Daniel. So tell us your story. How did you your main job is you're a teacher at Verdugo Hills High School, right? So how did that happen?
Well, so when I started, as a teacher, I actually didn't want to be a teacher. I started as a musician, so I started freelancing, playing a lot of gigs and whatnot. Whatever paid, whatever didn't pay, just trying to pay your dues, that kind of thing. So when I graduated from college, my old band director came by and he said, "You know what? We need a teacher." And I said, "Give it a try." And I said, I was very skeptical. I mean, do I really want to teach? Because that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to just play, man. That was the life of a musician. I'm 20, 21, 22 years old, and I was already gigging. But when I was 18, I was playing with, a lot of people out there. So then I decided, no, I don't think I want to teach, because I was liking it, the traveling and everything. But so I gave it a try, like for a week, and he said, "I'll buy you lunch." That's pretty much what he said. So I did, and I went, and it was pretty cool. I think one of the things that kind of just got me was like the inspirational, because, I would play my trumpet for them. They're all like, "Oh man, I want to do that." And because there were kids out there, maybe they were not the majority, but there were a couple of kids out there that wanted to know, "Oh man, this is what he does for a living. I want." So next thing I know, I was called not to an interview. They just say, "Hey man, these are the guys." Like, my band directors went to the principal and said, "Hey, this is the guy that you guys want. Yeah, this is the guy." And he's like, "Well, I just hung up with this one teacher who's got a doctorate degree, and then he wants a job too, but it's yours." So, and this is me without a credential, by the way.
You didn't have a teacher credential?
I didn't have a teacher credential.
Wow.
I was going in as with an emergency credential. So, and the thing about it is just like favor of God, kind of pretty much on your life. So I've never had an interview really for any job. So,
wow.
So, and even when I came to Verdugo Hills, they just wanted me there. Like, there was like this thing that you got to get this teacher here. You got to get this teacher here. And when I came to Verdugo, they I guess they loved it, where I was able to expand not only the vocal program, but also like now I teach like a rock band class, and I teach like music technology. And now, my club, it was my a cappella group was started as a club. So now, we're on the map, man. We're going against like big schools like Valencia High School or Burbank, Burroughs. We're like up there.
Yeah. So before we get into like what you're doing there and your experience, I kind of want to take it back a little bit. So how'd you get into music in the first place?
Well, I started when my dad was a musician in church, and he was a singer. He was a Christian singer.
What did he play?
Guitar.
Okay.
So then, he would always take us to church. We're at church all the time, and I started playing guitar. And the pastor's son had this Kramer guitar. I remember it was pink, bright pink. And man, my dad would always take us like early to clean up. My dad was very strict, so he would always take us up early to clean the outside of the church and whatnot, or clean the benches of the church. But I would be quick, and then after that, I see the pastor's son practicing, so I go and sit and just watch. Pretty much, I just loved it. That was my thing.
How old were you at this time?
Probably 8 years old, maybe 10 years old, around there. So I was loving it. So I started playing guitar. I remember my first time I played guitar, I was so nervous. I grabbed the guitar and I was playing, but I was just like so nervous, and then that's how I just kind of pretty much grew up in church and just playing music. And whenever the guitar player wouldn't show up, then I'll play. Whenever the bass player wouldn't show up, I'll play, and so forth. Pretty much that's how I did it.
So you started on guitar then?
I started playing guitar.
And what instruments do you play?
Well, my main instrument is trumpet. I got a degree as a trumpet player. Then I play piano, and then I play guitar, play a little bit of bass, play a little bit of drums, and yeah.
So you said you had a pink guitar? You ever seen someone with a flying V at church?
No, man. I can just imagine like the stigma even during that time, a guy playing a pink guitar inside of church.
It was nice.
Yeah. And then so you started playing, and then tell us about Fuente Praise. How did that come about?
Well, Fuente Praise came about. I was a music director at this church, and it was a big ministry. They had they had radio, they had TV, they were pretty up there. So I would do their music. During this time, I would, right after work, whenever my teaching gig was over, I would come to church and just sit on the piano and practice. And that's how I started writing songs. And the reason why I started writing songs was because as a musician, I just didn't want to play for somebody forever. I wanted to do my own thing too.
How old were you when you first started writing your songs?
Well, I would say 25, maybe 24.
Wow. Okay.
Nice. And did you ever produce that song? Did you?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did. So, when I first produced my first album, it was like a first thing of everything,
Really?
I didn't even know, but I think all the gigs that I did and all the people that I met, I learned through them. Really, that was my school. I really didn't get a degree in like software or recording, or it wasn't that. It's just the people that you meet, you ask, and you go ahead and practice whatever it is that they said, and then I put it into practice. But anyway, so then I started a church, and obviously I'm not a singer, and how ironic, right? And I teach singing.
People how to sing?
I teach people how to sing, but I don't sing.
I think we've all had to sing like out of necessity, right?
Yeah,
like at churches.
Especially like at a church,
Yeah, I always thought I sounded horrible, but I sang for like probably a year. And I was like, okay, this isn't for me. Yeah, I'm not good.
I'm not.
No, seriously, I can't. I mean, I can sing, but I just don't think that's for me. But I remember actually, and this is what kind of also helped me out, was that my teacher, my trumpet teacher, would say like, this trumpet player, he became this famous because he started doing his own songs, but he like got the best musicians to play his songs.
Wow.
So that's how he became famous. But anyway, so I kind of got that idea and saying, well, you know what? I don't sing, but I think these songs are pretty good. So then I grabbed these songs, I wrote them, and then I had somebody else singing. Nice. So then it sounded good. But anyway, so I started my first song. It literally didn't take us like, I would write a song, and it would take me like a good month to really do it, because I was so afraid that it was going to be rejected. What if people don't like it? That's I think that's the first step for everybody, right? When
that rejection.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So then I didn't want to do it. I'm thinking I'll forget it. So finally, we sung the song. I was a hit at church, man. It's like people loved it.
That's awesome. What's the name of that song?
Jehová Shama. I'm sorry, no, hold on. No, that's the second one. The first one is called Jesus Bienvenido.
Okay. And that's Welcome Jesus in Spanish.
Welcome Jesus. So, which by the way, that song was translated. There's a church in Boston who sent us like a recording of them singing it in English.
Wow. So other churches are playing your songs.
Well, yeah, and the funny thing is, I wrote this like 2005 or something. I can't remember, but way back when. And then I just, a couple of years back, I just knew that song was number one in this local station here, Radio Nueva Vida.
Wow.
It was number one. Like, I didn't know that. How come I didn't know all this?
Did you get royalties?
No royalties.
Oh, man.
Boy, gotta get paid.
Yeah, boy, gotta get paid, man.
No, and then, so I, when I started writing the songs and I would just introduce them to the church, And, I guess it was just because, the thing is, I was writing the songs also when I was doing the prayer services. Prayer service was on Monday. Now you got the church filled up with 2,000 people on Sunday, and then there's prayer service. You got only 20 people out there, So that was my time for me to practice the songs. Like, I would just sing them there. Yeah. And then I would go with how people would react to them. And then it became to a point that I started writing songs every week. And then not all the songs were great, but I felt like there were some songs that, these are it, like this is it. So so I did my first album. I produced everything along with a couple of friends who helped me out. And the problem with me releasing those songs was that I didn't have like the resources with like, in terms of like, okay, you got the album, now what do you do kind of thing. You don't But you learn as you go. Right. But, that's how I started writing those songs, and I started just producing the songs, and and I was just afraid at first, but I took the first step, and then if it sucks, it sucks. Let's and I'm saying it that way because it's kind of try to keep it real with, that's pretty much what people are going to say.
Yeah. I mean, they say, a lot of people say that, out of 100 songs you write, you might have one good song that you've written.
And what's amazing is that that's like with everything.
Yeah.
Like with photography, with writing just a piece, like you just got to start, right? Like you just got to start. And like, it might suck at the beginning and people might laugh at you, but you just got to keep doing it. And I know from like looking at your Instagram, like you're always just grinding. Like music is like your thing, and it's like a daily thing.
Yeah, I see you post maybe at least once a day, something like I'm in the lab making music. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and like I see you constantly. A couple of things, like I see him perfecting his craft every single day. Like you don't just like play. I'm just like, all right, what do I need help in? Like, what do I need to do? Like, I'm gonna practice my skills, or I'm gonna practice, my modes. And I see you doing that all the time. And I think that's just it. Like,
what's insane is that after 20 years, you're still doing that.
Well, you know what? I tell my students, man, you know what? You got to practice to make it better. And that's another thing. I never compare myself to anybody. There are songwriters, there are musicians, there are producers way better than I am, for sure, 100%. But that didn't stop me. I've got what I've got. I'm my originality, and then just kind of give it to. Not everybody's going to be my audience, but whoever my audience is going to receive what I have, kind of thing. So
yeah.
And everyone's always trying to ask, like, how do I get like my song out there? How do I get a following? How do I get gigs? And nobody ever asks like, how do I get good?
Exactly,
like people are like even in writing, like, oh, how do I get it published? How do I get it to the right people? Like nobody ever asks like, how do I actually get good at writing?
Right. And it's all work. You got to, man, just recently I was having a conversation with one of my brothers, and this little kid, he's like, 10 years old, and he plays bass, guitar, and drums, but he doesn't just play it like like me as a beginning level. I'm talking about this 10-year-old plays like top notch.
He's a beast, yeah,
really good, right?
You guys know him, or he's like
on
YouTube?
It's like a YouTuber, Instagram.
I think I've seen him.
I've seen a couple of kids.
Well, there's a few.
There's a lot. There's a lot. It's kind of crazy. There's a lot.
And then the thing is, they it's talent, really. I feel like that's just, it's in them. Unlike me, I work for it. I have to work for it. So that,
Well, like most of us.
Yeah. Like, to be honest, like a lot of us, right?
That is true.
But what's your take on that? Like, do you feel like, like talent can only take you so far? Do you feel like people that work usually sometimes for those gifts, or that, get playing guitar or trumpet, do you feel like the people that work harder are the ones that probably are making it further in life, or kind of what have you seen?
I think, if you work hard, you're going to appreciate all that work. You're not just going to let it go. If you really, it's like, when I started giving lessons, people are not going to, it was free. I told them, come on Saturdays, people wouldn't show up, they really didn't care for it. Yeah. But when I started charging them, all of a sudden the kids, you got to be, kids will be there all the time.
Once they start charging the parents.
The thing is, because you are actually paying with your own hard work.
Yeah.
Now, talent, of course, is, you need to have talent for that. I remember when I was in college, there was this guy who who wanted to be a voice major, right?
Right.
And then we all took that class, but you had to do some singing. You get, they give you a piece of paper and you got to read the melody.
Right.
This guy was tone deaf. He couldn't do it. But he was like, he wanted to do it. He worked hard. He got tutors and he was just working and working, but he didn't have a talent, right? So you do have some talent.
I've heard the quote that talent will get you there, but hard work will keep you there.
Exactly.
Like I started, I don't know if you guys have seen it on Netflix. There's a few like documentaries on some musicians like Steve Aoki and even Kevin Hart, who's an actor, but he's in the creative industry, where you think, oh, they work, like they do the gig and then they go home and party or whatever, or just relax. And it's crazy how these documentaries show that these guys are working like 24/7.
Yeah, they're always working.
They're on the grind. That just because they made it does not mean that like they can relax, because like I feel like the industries that we're in are changing all the time. New talent, like you just mentioned, like they'll come up and they'll take your jobs.
Well, you know what? You always have to think for the future, and that's what I tell my students: always think for the future, plan for the future. You're just not going to stay on one thing. I started playing trumpet first. That was my main. Guitar at church,
right?
But professionally, I started playing trumpet with a lot of bands, and then just doing recordings and whatnot. But I always thought, man, like sometimes it would upset me because at that time, this is like in like early 2000s, church was totally different. I couldn't go out and then have a gig, So I was very specific on what gigs I would get so that it wouldn't, hinder whatever the pastor would say. Or whatever,
that's interesting. Yeah. And
it happened, These times now it's a little loose on those things, but at that time, I couldn't really do that much. And then even at church, I wasn't being paid. It was just a volunteer.
So back then, what were things that probably either the church or your Christian elders or friends or even your parents, like what did they think of when you did want to play music that probably wasn't Christian or you didn't go to a church?
Well, my dad was very strict, and but I had to eat, man. Work is work.
Yeah, that's true. We got to eat.
And then I was literally just going for work. I know in my heart where my heart would stand for God, pretty much.
Right.
That was my thing. But people out there back then, the pastors and Christian people, if you were playing with somebody that's non-Christian, man, you're like, you're worshiping the devil kind of thing.
Did you ever play like at lounges or at bars or anything like that?
I didn't play bars. I did play a couple lounges. And I did a couple like, what do you call those? Like jazz coffee shops,
stuff like that.
Yeah. And I went on tour with a Belizean band at some point.
Nice.
We toured. Wow. That was nice. And then we used to go for the weekends, and I would play. Everything was professional. What I would do is whenever we go out, they'll go out, do their thing. I play the gig, and I go back to my room, and then let's go get something to eat or something.
Yeah.
It's just something kind of like explore kind of thing. But I really, like I said, I was very specific with the gigs that I would get. I wouldn't go to places that I think, that's kind of not really a place to go.
Right.
Do you think that changed like now, or are you similar?
You know what? It's just, it's changed a bit, but not to the point where, I'm just going to go get it because.
Right. If it comes, it
comes. But even then I still, because, I guess I'm still working with my craft, but I think it's pretty solid. So I get to choose what I do and what I not do. So
that's so interesting.
You have the luxury to turn down gigs.
Yeah.
And it's just the thing, because some things are not for me, I feel, I get to choose that. And then I'm like, you're right. It's a luxury now, but it's because I worked hard, man. When I went to college, my inspiration was my mom. My mom was like, she was the visionary in the family. My dad was a strict person. He was strict. So we got everything, we had both my mom and my dad. But then my mom would say, you got to go to college. You got to get a degree. I wanted to be a dentist at some point because we had like a college fair and that was my thing. And then I went to the music one, you know what? I'm going to go with what I want to do. And since I was playing at church, this is it. Like, I got the practice.
It was just like a natural transition.
But then even then, when it was, when coming to college and doing all that stuff, I was practicing, I will get to school like around 8 a.m. And by the time it's like 9 at night, I'm home, and it was hard work, So during that time, I was just pretty much preparing myself. And then as I went, I'm thinking, I'm playing for these guys. I'm getting paid, but, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be somebody's employee. I want to be the employer kind of thing.
Wow.
So then that's how I started doing my songs, and I started learning how to use a computer, how to use how to record, what microphones, what, all that, and that's how it came about when I started writing my own songs, recording them. And then, I have all these friends who play with different people, and then they were, hey man, I got a singer. Can you track? Can you do this? Can you do a piano track? And that's how everything just kind of, everything just kind of came about for me.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit. So you get invited to play to many places, events with people, very talented musicians, and Fuente Praise gets invited to various churches, including my own, like Listening to Camino and I saw that set. We're a church of, hitting like 4,000 probably right now. And I saw that set, and I was blown away how you mixed, some normal Christian songs that we hear all the time, but you put like a salsa mix into it, and I was very impressed. But how did you make those connections? Like I feel like everyone knows you. Like every musician I come across is like, oh yeah, Daniel
Lopez. Yeah, he's my boy. He's my boy. Everyone's your boy.
Yeah, like how did you make those connections?
Well, you know what, man. One thing in this industry, and not just this industry, but just in general, you have to be a people person, man.
Right.
Yeah.
And you gotta just be this charismatic person because. If you're going to be a musician, you're going to be meeting other people and connecting with other people and networking.
Yeah.
You just can't be close and say, I'm kind of better than you. Because there's people like that.
Yeah.
Man, just humble yourself.
We've met a few.
Yeah.
But you know what, man? let's just, for me at least, I'm thinking, man, I'm going to learn something from this guy. I know he's good.
Yeah.
And that's how I connect. Like you're right. I've 20 years of playing in churches and playing out there. I mean, there's a lot of musicians that I know, and then that I work with, and and just like have much respect for them. They also have respect for me, and it's something that we keep.
Yeah.
Something.
And I think the same thing of Andrew too. Like Andrew knows a ton of people, and from what I know, like everyone has a good opinion of you. And in the music industry, even though it feels like it's huge, it's actually not, right?
Well, it depends. If you travel, when you travel with a band,
right,
you can see right away how small. Because
the music industry is very small there, man.
Yeah. And even to go further in, like even the music industry of the faith, of Christians, and not just in church, but even Christians playing out. Like it's a small circle, right?
It's a small circle. But it was very small at the time when I started being a musician. Now it's grown a lot more, growing, definitely. Yeah. Wow. And you meet all these people that play for like big artists, and then they're at church. I don't see anything wrong with it. I feel like if the person's able to keep himself rooted, then it's okay. He can go and play.
Yeah.
So I was. Did you ever work at a school?
I never worked at a school, actually, no.
So I was a after-school teacher for like not long. I wasn't very good at it.
Too long.
I taught music too, but again, it was after school, so it didn't really count. But we wanted to ask you, how do you like balance your faith, or how does your faith play a role in your job? When we were actually physically at school and attending at Verdugo Hills High School, do you think it was ever tested or?
Yes, it's always tested, man. Those kids test you.
I'm sure working with kids test you. Yeah.
I think the thing that speaks louder is your actions, the way you are. Mm-hmm. And sometimes because I'm not a talker with my students, but once they see they see like, who is this guy? Like they start asking questions and, oh yeah, I have this, I have that. I don't preach to them and say, man, God is, no, I just, hey, what do you do? Oh, I go to church. This is what I do. I get on my YouTube channel. And like all of a sudden, the next day come up, oh man, I didn't know you were that big time. That kind of thing.
My mom knows about you.
Right?
Like, yeah,
that is
my
true.
mom and my dad, like,
That
they
is
listen
true.
to your album all the time.
That is true. But,
I
you know,
can imagine.
but, you know, I don't, you know, and then when they ask and say, hey, listen, you're 18, I can give you my opinion. But other than that, I won't.
Because legally, as a high school teacher, you're not allowed to like tell them
like anything about like the gospel per se.
Oh yeah, I can't. Not unless if we're like, say it's a Bible club.
Okay.
Then I can't. But you know, it's a different setting. It's because kids are coming in voluntarily, not in my, say for example, I'm teaching my music tech class and all of a sudden, hey guys, you know, God loves you kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Right. Has any of your students ever like asked you like anything?
Oh yeah, I get us asked all the time. I say, well, you know, I'm Christian, I believe in God. And then if you don't, I respect that, you know, but that's what I believe, you know. I leave it at that, no more, because, you know, I just don't want to get into it. Some of the kids can get defensive and some of the kids are very docile, you know. You can, I'd rather just keep it safe and say, hey, you know, that's what I believe. That's what I do.
Right.
And they get curious because I know they go and, you know, all of a sudden I have a couple more views on my YouTube.
You get that notification.
Homeboy over here came to check me out.
Yeah, man.
Do you think your faith has like played a role in how you inspire these kids?
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, the kids there, I don't know if you had it, but I had that where, you know, some of the students during lunchtime, they just come to the room and chill.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. I think
I used to do that for like some teachers.
Right. And then it's just a phenomenon because, you know, I don't say anything for them to come. They just want to chill. And that's when they ask me questions. And it's, when it's lunchtime, I'm more of a chill thing. Hey, what's up? You know, what's going on? Ask questions. And sometimes they want to get a little personal. And I do give them some where I say, oh yeah, I've like, you know, I've done this, or, you know, but you know, it's something that the kids just, there's something that they like about you, you know, I don't know.
Right,
I guess something that they can connect. And then some of the kids were saying the other time, oh yeah, it's like my safe haven here. This is, I don't know why, but I just like it.
That's awesome.
And I think it has something to do with God being in me.
Yeah,
right?
Of course. Like, I would say 100%.
Oh yeah. So, you know, it's like, you know, that good spirit attracts others kind of thing.
And most of the time, like these kids, like they're going through something, right?
Oh boy. Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot.
You know, not only from like my experience, you know, the little time I did teaching, but like our experience. You know, even if you grow up like in the, you know, perfect home, like I feel like as a teenager, man, always dealing with something.
Yeah.
And I think they like you said, like they do find that haven.
Yeah.
Just being around you.
Yeah.
You know,
just a place where they feel safe, where they feel like they can be themselves, really, you know?
No, and I just have to be there for them. I mean, there's a lot of situations where, you know, all the kids, students who just, you know, they're going through something and it's, you got to be there for them, you know, and one way or another, by you opening the door, that's a lot, you know, because I remember there was a time when I got sick, you know, I wasn't there at school, you know, and all of a sudden, you know, next day they come, hey, look, this is what we were doing. They would show me their Snapchats and like, look, they, you know, they would take a video of the doorknob and then a sad face, you know, he's not here today. Where do we go?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was panic when either like you said, the teacher wasn't there, or I don't know if you remember, like, you know, you show up at school and you had like a hangout spot and you would show up and maybe like your gang wasn't there and you're kind of like with your lunch in your hands.
Yeah, like everyone went on a field trip and then you're the only one that didn't go. You're like,
what do I do? Like, this is
I got
the end of the world.
I guess I got to go make other friends or talk to other people. Yeah, it's tough.
I miss high school. Kind of.
I don't really.
How was your college experience?
You know, man, I had it rough, man, because you know, books were expensive. You know, what I did was I had to work and giving private lessons. You know, I started giving private lessons, giving clarinet lessons and saxophone lessons. Now, I didn't know about it. Like, I didn't know how to do it. But I'm thinking, man, I'm a musician, man. I know. I gotta figure it out. And I did it, man. And, but, man, everything was just like, it was tough because, one, no money. I was broke all the time. I was on BRC. You know what BRC is? From El Pollo Loco.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. So I played football. We would save the cups in our locker. And when we were like, oh, are you down for some BRC? Like, we would take our cups and refill it. We would, the bean and cheese burrito, we would fill it up with all the salsas. Do you remember?
Yeah,
dude. Because you could just fill it up with guacamole and tomatoes.
Yeah,
and you made your own. It was like $1, right?
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, man.
I remember.
Wow, but you were doing that in college. Wow.
Well, because, my mind was set thinking, and not only that, I was applying for scholarships. I even got an Asian scholarship, like for $200.
Are you Asian?
No, but but I was poor, man.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
So then, I didn't want to say I was poor, but I was like struggling to get. My mentality was, man, I don't want to be like, I will hear all these. Oh man, I'm in debt with so many thousands of. Man, I was so scared about that. Like,
oh, bro,
yeah,
I don't want that. But you know what my debt was when I graduated? $400.
Wow. I don't think many people today can
do. Yeah,
can say that.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
College is expensive, man.
It is, but so is ignorance.
Yeah, so that's even true. Yeah, no, but like that's a good question though, because I think a lot of times, growing up in the church, like sometimes the church pushes you to not really pursue those types of dreams, right? Where you want to better yourself or you want to better kind of your gifts or your talents, I grew up in a church where it was like, hey, you work and then you come to church, or that's all you do. And you don't go to school and you don't do this and you don't do that. And they don't really like preach also, like saying, hey, you can preach the gospel while you're teaching students. You can preach the gospel while you're editing a film. You can preach the gospel while you're cleaning teeth if you're a dentist, right? Like that those are all realities that you can do. And I think that you're like a perfect example of that, because did you get any backlash or anything like that while you were going to school, saying like, hey, like maybe this is not from God? Or
like did it like were your parents like, are you really studying music like in college?
Yeah. Well, my dad always my dad always supported me with that. That's what you want to do. That's what you want to do.
That's awesome.
And then my mom, well, both my parents, but the church really wasn't there for me. At that time, it's not like the progressive church now. Where everything, okay, we got to think about the kids, we got to think about the middle kids, we got to think about the youth, and then the adults, and then and they try to cater every necessity. Back then and there, you can go to church, you're like a bad person.
You're a sinner.
My experience was that when I was about to do my recital, my trumpet recital, I invited the pastor, where it was a couple of pastors, not just one, but one of them said, "You know what?" He said, "Why am I going to go to this guy? He's going to be out in the world and not be in church."
Wow.
And then right away, I'm thinking, man, I was hurt. Who says that?
I would be hurt too. Yeah.
But then, you always have, I'm thinking, okay, well, it's whatever he thinks. But my mentality was, I just want to prove this guy wrong. And then it's so sweet every time I hear a song on the radio. Oh, perfect.
Oh, yeah. Send it over. Hey, did you hear this?
Yeah. And then, because back then it was more of a strict, more religious point of view. It's that one mentality and that's it. Nothing else matters, whatever it is that you do.
It was almost like the career was you either work in church or you work like, in the world, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the church wasn't paying anything, to be honest. Like it wasn't, I was just there, and I was there back then. Church was Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I consider myself to be a pretty strong believer and deeply rooted, but
well, that was it, man. That was the thing. You had to be there every single day of whatever service they had. And I was a musician, don't forget, so I had to be there a little bit early.
Oh, yeah. you gotta get the 2
put in
hours,
more hours, right?
2 hours early to practice, and clean up. Did you ever do vigilias?
Oh, yeah. Once a month we had those.
Oh, man.
And they would go till 2 a.m.
Oh, man.
You know, but, you know, it was like, but the church really, I'm going to say this, because, you know, God puts people, right? But don't forget, people are people. They're always going to be making a mistake, right? So, you know, I didn't put my faith into the person that said, what are you going to do? What's he going to do? I put my faith in God, right? So I'm not going to go with what people are going to say, you know, and although I respect the pastor and I respect the authority that God, you know, but don't forget that, you know, God also gives you a gift. And then if he gives it to you, you got to work it. But the thing is now more pastors are a little bit more on the progressive side when it comes to like having kids and students to get an education.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
100%. And that's a good question to ask. I mean, I would like to kind of, what type of advice would you give for others like that want to kind of either follow your footsteps or similar, right? Like what advice would you give to those creatives or musicians?
You know, sounds cliche. Find a passion, find what you love, right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay, but you probably hear that all the time. You hear that all the time, but man, just work hard and practice and get better at it. Those are my words. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna give you a story. So practice, get better at it, and then that's what's gonna happen. You know, things are gonna happen for you.
Right.
A couple years back, the kid sends me a message on Facebook saying, "Hey, Mr. Lopez, I finally found you. I gotta tell you something. Thank you. I'm sorry I was a bad student when I was in your class, but you know, because of you, I've made it." I'm like, "Oh, congratulations, man! What did you make?
What did you
Yeah,
I'm not telling you."
And then like he's like, "Well, you know that phrase that you just get better at it. That phrase stuck in my head. Get better at it." And then you know, so he's like, "Well, you know what?" He was struggling in something with a family. So, you know, those paisa dogs?
Yeah.
Well, he started with that. And he's like, man, he started selling hot dogs.
Wow.
And I'm going to get better at it. Forget it.
Wow.
He would say that.
Yeah.
And then that's a little word that I use loosely, but not thinking what that's actually going to happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then the kid, look, this is my car. Damn, this guy like a BMW. I'm like, hey, then, wait a minute. So hot dogs? No. I started that way. Now I have like 5 carts, so I own all those 5 carts.
Wow!
Not the little carts, like the big ones. You know like the trucks.
Yeah.
Oh like a food truck.
It's like a food truck, but they're not the big food truck. I'm talking about like I don't know if you've seen the medium sized ones.
I think
ones.
so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, he has 5 of those, and like, damn, you're a businessman, you know. And he's like, well, thanks to you, like I just got better at it. And we said, well, congratulations.
Yeah, what's insane is that these like principles go across
it's not
most
just
disciplines.
Not just being a creative, but really just life, I would say.
Yeah, I remember being in a business class. I think it was entrepreneurship. And I went to my professor and I was like, all right, professor, like, so, you know, I want to be a CEO. How do I get that job, you know? And he kind of laughed at me and he's like, first of all, like you have the wrong mentality. He's like, you know, CEO isn't a job that people give you, at least the majority of the time.
Yeah, majority of the time.
He's like, CEO is something that you have to create. And and so like at the end of the conversation, I was like, okay, so what you're telling me is like, there's no getting out of the Steve Jobs startup in the garage. Like you have to like just do it and put in your time. And translating that into like music is like, there's no, you know, getting out of the 10-hour per day, you know, in your bedroom, just practicing scales or something like that. Like we hear, you know, interviews with like, you know, musicians, even people like, you know, Slash, and they're like, how'd you get so good? Well, I just put in like just 8 to 10 hours every day. And I just
practice every day and play every day. And
so there's no escaping that.
You got to practice and work hard. But you do have whatever it is that you practice and work hard, you got to love it for sure. Because I've never worked in a day in my life for real. It's like I've never worked. I go out there and I'm gonna go play. I'm gonna do a session, or I'm gonna go teach a lesson. It's like not work for me. It's like, oh man, this is like
that's fun.
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So and it's something that you need to find and really just work at. If you really want it, go get it.
Yeah.
Go get it.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't like to use the soft words when they say find a passion. You know, you're gonna love. No, man, just work hard.
Yeah.
You know, no one's gonna give it to you. No one will. No one will. You're gonna give it to yourself, pretty much.
Yeah.
You're on your own.
Yeah.
Go get it. Be what's that word that they fierce?
Yeah. Be
You know,
fierce.
go ahead, man.
Yeah.
Go get it.
I love the saying that it's like you know, when you make yourself that good, you don't have to go look for anything. They find you.
Exactly right.
Like what was it? Like I think Justin Bieber got big like that, right? Because like he just posted
You
something.
just posted on YouTube and you got big.
They found him. You know, it's like when you're there, when your abilities are there, like when you're just focused on like, okay, like, you know, in a way, people are gonna hear you. People are, you know, and they're gonna be like, we want this guy, you know.
Well, you know, there's one time I had an audition for the jazz band, right? And then this is back then at CSUN, they only have two bands, the A band and the B band. That's it.
Ooh.
So there's only 8 spots for trumpet players. Only 8 out of like 25 trumpet players, right?
Wow.
So I went in there, and let me tell you, man, I didn't practice, not gonna lie. I just like, I think I could do this. It was the worst audition ever. I thought to myself, I never want to embarrass myself like that again.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, next year, I'm thinking, next semester, I'm going to try it again, and I'm going to make it. And sure enough, I made it 5th trumpet.
That's so
let me tell
good.
you, the trumpet, the director was so nice to me. He said, okay, I'm going to choose some songs so you can be 5th trumpet. Wow, at least I made it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because the thing is, I started playing trumpet when I was 16, 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And all these guys who were like, there was a guy there whose dad was a professor at Long Beach State, a trumpet professor.
Wow.
So, you know,
Wow, yeah, so
I'm like, okay.
And he was in the same class.
Oh, he
as you?
was a top #1 trumpet player there.
Wow.
yeah.
So, you know, but anyway, I mean, to me, I'm like competing against those, you know, I'm getting there, you know.
Yeah.
And then finally, my 3rd year, I was playing second trumpet. I got solos here and
Wow.
there, you know. But I'm going to tell you, man, I was 5 hours of practice every day. My lip was just like gone by the end of
By the end of the session, you were like, I can't.
And then the thing is, you know, that's what kind of got me to working, because then I started gigging, and then I had a friend who had a recording studio, and he would do jingles for like companies,
Right.
and say, hey, come over, Daniel, I'll pay you $100 for one of those. Man, I'm not sure I go play it. Literally, it was like the easiest thing in the world. And then that was it, you know. But then it was all that hard work, you know.
Yeah.
And all my failures too, because the auditions, even my lessons. One day I show up to my lesson, my teacher's like, Daniel, you didn't practice this. Get out. Literally, my 1 hour lesson became 5 minutes because I didn't practice my lesson. He's like,
He just kicked you out.
he
He's
kicked
like,
me
yeah.
out. Come back when you're ready.
Wow.
We can't waste time. That's what he told me. And this guy is like a LA Philharmonic trumpet player who
He played for the Phil.
Yeah,
Wow.
he played
Yeah.
for it. And then, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, well, you know, I felt so bad, literally, that I don't know, like I felt like I want to give up or something, because oh my gosh, I feel so bad.
You ever seen those guys play?
The Philharmonic? No, I never.
Oh my goodness, they're right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
insane. I think they play when at the Hollywood Bowl when they show a movie.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
them, right?
That's them. Yeah.
Oh, then I have seen
My
them.
goodness, they're
Yeah,
so
I've seen them.
good.
They're really
I
good.
mean, I had good treats. Like there was one guy who's a trumpet player for LA Symphony from Mexico, and at that time, Luis Miguel was doing a tour here. So I'm about to go into my lesson, and then there's another trumpet player. It's like this Mexican guy is in there, like,
Yeah.
oh my God. And I'm thinking, oh shoot, did I miss my lesson? Or am I late?
Am I late?
And then he's like, hey, Dad, come right here. And then he's like, what's going on? Oh, look, this is Juan Manuel. And he's like, this is my best friend. He's like, from Mexico. He plays for this and that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, is it okay? He sits with you. We're gonna do some trios.
Wow.
And it was just,
Oh man.
our lesson was just playing trios along with all 3 of us. But this guy was amazing.
That's
Yeah.
But
so
he
sick.
But he had like a concert with Luis Miguel that
night.
night.
That like
yeah.
wow, that's dope.
I know.
Yeah, that's
you get
really
little
cool.
things here and there. So, you know, but like going back to just working hard, pretty much, man. Just work at it. Do it.
So you mentioned that failure of, you know, not making band A or band B. What has been another like big failure in your music career that you've had to like overcome? Or
Well, I think there's been a bunch of those. But something that I can, that I can think of that's really marked my life. I don't know, man. There's just been a lot.
There's no escaping them.
No,
it's
man.
just going to happen, right?
It's life.
It's life, yeah. Your
It's
ups
life.
and your downs.
Yeah. And you learn from them. The thing is, if you make it again, that's a problem. If you keep making the same mistake, it's like, we used to play a practice game with my trumpet teacher because we put 3 pennies in the middle, right? And I would play the piece and he would play the piece. If I make a mistake, he'll take a penny away or I'll take a penny. So whoever ended up with no pennies is a winner, right?
Wow, we should do that.
Yeah.
Because obviously he's going to win because so, but you just don't practice the mistakes. See, that's another thing. You practice, but don't practice the mistakes. Like whatever scale, the first time you play the scale, right? It's perfect. Second time, maybe no, actually the first one is not perfect.
Right.
Second time you do a little mistakes. And by the time the 10th time, it's getting a little bit better. But what did you do? You corrected all your little mistakes, so that's the way I kind of teach life when it comes to music. And I give life lessons to my students. Hey, man, life is just like a scale, you got your ups and all of a sudden you got your downs. Yeah. But the second time you go up, it's going to be easier, that kind of thing. So it's just, mistakes and failures are always going to come in your life. Always. You can't avoid them. You should learn from them.
That's so good. Would you recommend for someone who wants to, make music as their career to go to college?
Yes, I'm gonna say this. I've seen musicians, a lot of musicians who are friends of mine, and I respect them. But they don't have a degree. Mm-hmm. And what happens then is, like, say if they want to have a teaching gig, like at a school or at a university or somewhere, then they need a degree. They need a paper.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
So I think it's something that you need it. If you look, you're not gonna play forever. At some point, you got the new cats. You're like
man, that's a good point.
Yeah, man, it is.
You got the new cats coming in there. It's so good.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say they are a little bit cheaper than the ones that are,
True.
But then again, there's some pros and cons on that. But but I would say yes. You just prepare yourself, get yourself a degree out there, because anywhere you go, you're gonna have a door open. And
it just opens more doors, right? Like
definitely.
more opportunities.
Yeah, because although you're going to be in recording sessions and doing some tours, but when on your off time, what do? Well, get a part-time job like at a community college. You can teach there. You have a degree, and that's it. You're set. But yeah, I think it's good for you to just have that, and not also that, but also it opens your mindset. Not just
definitely,
100%.
It doesn't just keep you on one little hole where this is the only way and that's it. No, man, it teaches you a lot of things, not just living life. How to apply whatever you learned in college and put it into your daily life.
And you network too, right?
Yeah, you network a lot. I'm sure.
You meet people, and they always say, like, look at the person next to you. They're the next politician. They're probably going to be hiring you, and like these are people who you probably work in the industry with.
Well, I had one of my students who, like, he sends me his beats all the time. He's
That's
like,
cool.
And then this guy has, like, I don't know, like 50,000 plays every month or so on SoundCloud.
Oh wow, yeah.
And then this is like, it's so cool because, like, I'm thinking you're already making it, like, you don't really need my help. But but this kid's like, no, I just want to send them to you because, every time I send it to you, you say, maybe it needs this, maybe put this down, maybe bring this down on the mix or whatever. And it's like, it works. And every time I put one of those recommendations and I put it on my SoundCloud, it's like, you got the vibe or something. That's what he says.
You got the vibe.
Like, we never stop learning, huh?
Yeah.
Man, we never. That's something that I love about life. You never stop learning.
Yeah.
You absorb it, you learn it, practice it, and then all of a sudden something else comes in. Do the same thing.
Yeah.
So you never stop learning, and it's just the older you get, the more you see. Oh man, I should have done this better, or I should have. I could.
More regret starts coming in.
Oh man.
Yeah. Even though you're pretty good at, from what you've done. But I guess it's just more like man, I could have done this better. Like you always want to be better,
Yeah.
you know?